really good afternoon. How are you? Good. How's the week been? Long? Good. I'm gauging how many late nights you've had. It's Friday. How big is my task? I mean, we're over the after lunch slot. A round of applause for the panel, I thought, coming on after lunch. They did a superb job. And now I get to talk about bold change and brave decisions to people who make brave decisions frequently, so I'm aware of the task I have ahead. If we're going to connect those dots, if we're going to turn insight into action and truly take bold and brave decisions to deliver change, we'll have to do things we've never done before. Would you agree? You know, sort of basic, foundational starting point. And if we're going to do things we've never done before, we have uncertainty by definition. Would you agree? I don't know if it's going to work. I've never done this before. If humans, you and I, have uncertainty, we have risk. I thought I'd start there on a Friday afternoon. A quick show of hands. How many of you, when you were 14 or 15 years of age, had a mother, father, whoever cared for you at this time of your life, who would wave you off to school in the morning and say, "Goodbye, my precious. You have a wonderful," I'm glad, oh, look at that, I love it. Have a wonderful day today. Make sure you take some risks in the classroom today. Make sure that teacher understands there's a unique, innovative voice in the classroom. Let no teacher silence you today. Anybody? No, fewer hands. I'm glad the precious hands were up. A few of I get to travel with this extraordinary job that I somehow have managed to have, and that it's an enormous joy. And I can report from my travels that the only place in the world where hands go up in response to that question is California. If a hand goes up anywhere in Europe, I don't speak so often in Africa, but anywhere in Europe, then when I go and ask where the woman is from or the man is from, it'll usually be they're on secondment from San Francisco. We're not trained how to do this. I've got two, I'm very biased, but in my view, two fabulous daughters. One is now aged 27. I was waiting for a little gasp of surprise, but you're... I'm clearly not going to get it. I used to get it. 27, and one's aged 11, and how that came to be is a long story for later, and I'll tell you all about it, but it's been a wonderful adventure. And both of my girls, proud father, both of my girls can tell you how to measure the area of a triangle, ladies and gentlemen. They can tell you how to measure the area of a triangle, basic trig. Neither of them have had one day's education on what will happen to their neurotransmitters, their emotional state, their hormones, their biochemistry, their heart rate, their cognitive ability when they choose to leave the comfort zone to take bold and brave decisions to create bold and brave change. And yet, I suspect they will both live till 120, something we have no idea how to do yet. They'll have to navigate that financially, with your help, I hope. They're going to probably have 5 different careers, and we haven't heard of the last 4 yet. My youngest wants to be a doctor. Can you imagine, as an 11-year-old today, the changes she's going to see throughout her career if she decides to pursue it as a physician, as AI comes in to support her and her decision-making? Not one lesson in how to create change. So what I want to do today is bring you a framework. It's the framework that I've used in organizations globally, both to support leaders. My primary job is sitting alongside, quietly in the background, with senior leaders who've got global change to deliver in organizations. How can we orchestrate that? How can we architect that? And then my second job is to support the individuals who will take those decisions. I want to bring you the framework that we use in those environments today. And it starts with accountability. All high performance, all transformation, as you know, starts with ownership and accountability. I've never met an Olympic athlete who had a disappointment, came off and blamed her coach. You know, if they wanted to blame the coach, they did it a year ago and changed the coach. All high performance is about ownership and accountability, accepting that you hold the pen. There's no room for a victim narrative. You hold the pen. You write the story. You wrote all of the chapters that came here today, and you'll write the future. And I know you had different starting points. We all do across the world. I know you had awful things that happened to you. And I know that you had some wonderful things, and you didn't deserve either. We've all had our mix of things. But how we react and respond, where we build from that, that is our story. And it's easy to forget that we won't always be as young and beautiful and globe-trotting as you all are sitting in the room here today, even if you're not going to let me get away with being young. One day we'll be older. We'll look back on 2025 and we'll wonder, what did we do when we were young and we were beautiful and we left London with all of our ideas and we went back out into our communities whom we serve? What were the bold decisions we took as a result of being here now? So we hold the pen and we write the story, but I promised you a framework and I've given you a metaphor, so that's not good enough, is it? Let's go a bit deeper. How do we write the story? This is the only model I'll bring into the room today. It's the model I use for high performance and transformation. We wrote our story through our decisions, our actions, and our results. Let's keep this really simple because it is. And if you have a high-performance mindset, you'll evaluate with humility, with vulnerability. You'll be seeking to think, how could I do it better next time? And we can move through that quite quickly and call it a DARE loop: decision, action, result, evaluate, feedback, go again, new decision, better action. And so we're the sum sitting here today of all the decisions, actions, and results so far in life. Would you agree? How you loved, how you cared, how you showed up, how you studied, how you kept yourself fit and energetic, how you stuck at things when anybody else would have given up, poured themselves a beer and turned Netflix on, but you stayed with the thing. That's your result. That brings you into this extraordinary room today in this beautiful city. And if we want a new result, we changed the decision and action. You did this morning. You decided this morning what clothes to put onto your bodies. Action. You put on the clothes that we can see here in the room with our own eyes. Result. I wanted to be very honest, so I lurked at lunch in the corner and I watched you all so I could give an honest response about what the result was. And I think for 95% of you, ladies and gentlemen, 95% great decision this morning. Good decision this morning. 5%, I don't know what you were thinking, but it's on camera, it's live. No, I'm joking. You all look beautiful. You all look beautiful. Decision, action, result, new decision and action. Simple, huh? Except it's not. Because we're pattern recognition, pattern repeating devices, and I'll return back to that. That's how we have evolved. It's how we stay alive. It's how we survive. So changing our decisions and actions, especially if they're going to be bold and brave decisions and actions, as I've been asked to speak about this afternoon, means we're going to meet what I will call the tiger. I appreciate it. It should be a lion in current company, but I wrote the book, so I'm going to keep it as a tiger. That's all we need to call it. We don't need to understand the biochemistry. We just need to know that the heart rate will increase, the stomach will feel weird, the voice of imposter syndrome will speak. Everything in our being, all of our humanity will ask us to move back from uncertainty and risk. We're all in the room today because when we heard the story about the guy who went up to the cave and never came back, we didn't go to the cave. The ones who went to the cave, they didn't come back either. We all ran away. That's how we come to be here. So we're the ones who are absolutely tuned to move back from uncertainty and risk. We don't hang around to see what pushed the grass down at the water hole. We just move. That grass wasn't like that yesterday. We're gone. That's how we came to evolve. But now that's the most dangerous possible avenue of approach. In the level of disruption and uncertainty and transformation that we have, sticking with moving away from the uncertainty and risk is possibly the most dangerous thing we can do. Hence, it's the thing I work on with my girls. We do our maths homework, we do it with care, we do it with love, but we really work on this, even when they don't know they're working on this, when they're off on holiday. This, autonomy, movement, decision-making, risk on a controlled level, that's where we hang out. So I want to bring you a framework. It exists, as Heidi very kindly said, in a book. You would expect that from our hosts at M&G today, so we'll keep that as housekeeping. It's been used in wondrous organizations around the world, which has been a great privilege over the last 25 years. I began in this city as a corporate lawyer. I moved on in about the year 2000 into this world, and it's been an absolute treat working with these fabulous organizations over the years to deliver long-term change or in short bursts like today. But you would expect that too. So let's get personal. did indeed take a bet to become a jockey. It was a client. He was kind of pushing a little bit at me. He said, "What have you ever done to prove it works?" I said, "Well, we've used it with Apple. We've used it with Barclaycard. What do you want?" He said, "I didn't ask for your professional CV. I asked what you have done to prove it works." And I said something I now know you should never say to the senior man in a room, or woman for that matter, of his people. I said, "What have you got in mind?" And he smiled. And he came up with this. So the bet was to become a jockey riding in my first race live on the television within 1 year of sitting on a horse for the first time. I couldn't ride. We could just kill the volume on that. That would be great. Thank you. So I took the challenge. Thanks, guys. I took the challenge. I went home very excited. I thought I could have taken a hard challenge, return a tennis ball to Federer. Can you imagine? You wouldn't even see it. Train for a marathon every night in the wind and the rain of England. No, I've got horse riding. As you know, horse riding is a sitting down sport. How hard can a sitting down sport be? Which shows you precisely what I knew about horses. Nothing. I went to a big government school, free education in London, in inner city London. There were lots of frankly terrifying things in my 1980s London school. Some good things, not very many, but none of us ever found the riding stables and the horses at my school. I knew nothing. So I got onto Google when I got home. I learned a jockey usually starts learning how to ride a horse somewhere between the age of 3 months and 6 months. It tends to run in the family from mother and father to daughter and son. I was 36 years old, and so that wasn't a good start. I thought I'd better check the weight situation. A jockey, I learned, will start a race at a weight of between 7.5 and 9 stones. If you're not working in stones, don't translate. All you need to know is that on a scale, I must be a maximum of 9. I had no idea what I weighed. I didn't focus on my health at this phase in my life. I focused on working hard. So I got on the scales, and it was bad news. I thought, it's all right, I got this. I stepped off the scales, and I removed all of my clothes, and I got back on, and I thought that would make a little change, but not even a little change. I'm 12, I've got to be 9, meaning 25% of me has to find a new home, and I've got absolutely no idea how I'm supposed to do that. Some of you rightly thinking, oh great, he thinks he's clever to be a jockey, he's going to tell us all about how he did that, and we can too, right? No, that's a different guy. There are many more important things in my life than as elderly parents and young children than riding in a horse race, and there are many more important achievements in all of yours than one of us riding a horse on the television one day. What's important about this that we can play with together during this precious time we have is that I genuinely believed I had no business showing up to do that. People like me didn't do stuff like that. I was no good at sport at school. I didn't do sport. I was a guy in a suit. People like me were supposed to have a glass of wine on this side of the railings. We were not supposed to hop over the railings, get dressed up in silk, and have a go on the horses. That was for other people. I'm interested in what bold and brave decision as you leave this wonderful week together in London and head off. I hope to enjoy the UK for the weekend. We have some sunshine, stay. It's very rare. You've no idea. So I hope as you move away, you're thinking what you may be thinking. What I'd ask you to think about is what is the thing that you think you have no business showing up to do. That's what that other institution across the aisle, that big one, does, but we don't. Or they're the customers that somebody else accesses, I don't access. I don't know what it would be for you. But what is it, as you sit here today, you think people like you can't do? Let's go there, because that's where the brave, bold decision is. And that's what I've been invited to spend some time thinking through with you. So I'll use some stories from this to bring it alive as we go through. I think there are some solid principles about change that aren't really even being taught in business schools. You know this. Has anybody seen a movie? Quick show of hands. Have you seen a movie? No, nobody. Okay, so films are really great. We're coming. So it is Friday, isn't it? So they're wonderful. For those with the hands down, there's a thing called Netflix. You can download it. And on there you can watch the world's movies. And And they're all kind of the same. I mean, some, if you go to Japan, they get pretty freaky, but they're kind of the same. We start with a person in their ordinary environment, and then something happens to them. So we get Luke Skywalker. Let's go there. He's a grumpy teenager. He's very sulky in the 1977 film. I'm guessing you've seen it. But he doesn't do anything about it. And they sent him a droid with a princess saying, "Help me," but he's not interested. Uncle Owen tells him to get on with his chores, so he does what he's told. And they have to actually come and kill his guardians. And at that stage, he gets on the Millennium Falcon with Obi-Wan, and he gets off and he goes on his rite of passage journey to become a man. Dorothy, she's in Kansas. She wants to become a woman. We know she wants to get out in the world. How do we know? Because she hitchhikes to Chicago, doesn't she? No. She sings us a song about going over the rainbow. They have to pick up her house and drop it in Oz before the girl gets moving. Change starts with an event. And we haven't got a scriptwriter. We haven't got a scriptwriter. It always starts with an event. All of my changes start with an event. Either somebody pushed me or I created it. So we can wait for someone to push us, or we can create the event. Now, I'm guessing you're academically excellent. You've got a track record of delivering, which means that risk and uncertainty, acting boldly before you know how it's going to work, is relatively intimidating. I'm a lawyer. It's really intimidating. It's not what we're trained to do. Not what the insurance policy is written for either. We're trained to get the right answer. Now, of course, there are places where we need to get the right answer. But I promise you, even working with airlines, with Rolls-Royce Nuclear, who produce nuclear engines for reactors, I guess, to power nuclear submarines. There are areas where we don't take risks, and there are areas where we need to move quickly in order to build new customers, change the processes, move fast through the organization. Where are you going to take the risk? What is the bold action that you need to take? So let me illustrate this with horse racing. So I took the bet. I did the swaying thing. I went on a diet. I immediately disposed of all the candy in my house. I was extremely unpopular. I went for a horse riding lesson. I thought, that's pretty bold. And I was in the pub on the following Friday having a pie and a pint, because we all know that calories can't actually touch the human body on a Friday. You can have anything you want on a Friday. Good news, today is Friday. Enjoy dinner. I hope you had dessert at lunch. So I'm there with my friends, and they said, "What have you done that's bold?" I said, "Well, I've been for a riding lesson. I'm on a diet apart from Friday." They said, "That's not bold." I said, "It felt bold." I said, "It's not bold because most of Europe will go on a diet this year, and most 7-year-old kids have had to go on a pony. This isn't bold. What you need to do is ring up racehorse trainers, the people on the television who run the industry." So I did. I didn't want to. I ought to pause here because some of you might be thinking, well, you're very famous. You've spoken to 1 million people on all those lovely things. And and all of that is indeed true. But I would also say that I've been here since well before lunch, and I've hung out with you, and you've been absolutely charming. But not one person, not one of you, has asked me for a selfie. So I'm not going to buy he's famous, they all want to help him, right? I'm just another guy, just like you're another guy or another girl. So I ring them up. They all say, "You can't be a jockey." And they tell me the story. "You've got a story, be careful of the story. It's why we don't go to that cave. There was a bear in there 300 years ago, so we don't go to that cave." They tell me the stories. "You're too old, you're overweight, you can't ride a horse, mate. Too old, 36, to ride a horse quick. I'm not buying that, are you? Too overweight, variable, barring a medical condition. I don't have one. It's going to be a bit of hard work, but I can change my weight. Skill acquisition to learn to ride a horse." They're just telling me the stories. What are the stories they're telling you? Back to our question here. Then I rang up. I was back with my friends. They said, "Ring 3 of the most senior people in all of British horse racing," which I did. Within 48 hours, I'm having dinner with the most successful female jump jockey England's ever seen. And at the end of dinner, she put her hand out across the table. She said, "I don't see why not. We're going to start on Saturday morning, sir. I'll meet you outside. Well, if you do exactly what I tell you to do, then in 1 year, I guarantee you will be a jockey sitting on a horse on the television." Yes? I've got to be honest, she wasn't supposed to say that. If I touch her hand, I'm in Oz. I'm going up the yellow brick road. I've got to make new friends. I've got to meet new people. Whose hand do you need to shake? The bold decision doesn't happen of its own accord. Whose hand do you need to shake in order to create the event that means your movie just changed? You went from your ordinary world to a bold and brave decision to change that. It starts with an event. Wait or create. And when we create it, that tiger roars, everything in our head says, nah, move back from it. Our stomach feels weird, the heart rate increases, and we're back in that place of change that I described in the first place. I did decide to take the British freedive record, and that was not a client bet. I'd always been fascinated by the water, but I lived in London in the 70s and 80s, and we weren't a rich family, so we went to the seaside once every year, and the car always broke down, and it was one of those days with sand in your sandwiches, and I really knew nothing about Jacques Cousteau was on the television. He went underwater, but I didn't. And then as I grew older, I learned to scuba dive, and then my eldest daughter, who is 27, 28 now, she became very ill for 2 years, and so I decided to raise funds for pediatric research. That was the initiation for this. If you've seen a Netflix documentary, then you think this is a sport done by people with low regard for their own lives and very low regard for the lives of others. That's what documentary filmmakers do. In that documentary, you saw the 2 rules of freediving being broken. Rule number 1, process. We have absolute rigid process. We refine it and refine it and rehearse it, and we don't get it wrong, but it wasn't in place. Second, we push our limits very slowly. Of course we do. We're in the world's most hostile environment, with nothing to breathe, alone. There's no scuba diver there. It's too dangerous for scuba. Compressed gas at depth. It's not a good mix. Meaning we push the limits slowly. In the documentary, in a rush to be an influencer, you saw her push the limits very fast. So let's depart from that and go back to freediving for the rest of us. It's a meditation. It's beautiful. At 100 meters under the ocean, I am literally being hugged by the planet. It's 11 times the Earth's atmospheric pressure. You might think that's painful. Of course it's not. You can't have pain and meditate, so therefore you have to learn to manage the pressure at exactly the rate of descent. It's beautiful. The training for freediving is yoga. There are 3 things I've got to do to execute this dive. 1, take complete control of my emotional state. I'm 100% in my prefrontal cortex, consciously guiding this dive. I'm not having an emotional reaction to it. I might let some joy out, but I'm not at any stage waking up that tiger and asking for his opinion on whether we should be down here. Second, I've got to manage the pressure, skill acquisition. I'll tell you about it over coffee. It's just a process. You've got to learn how to do it. 3, I've got to hold my breath. So people sometimes say, oh, that tiger you're talking about, Jim, I guess that tiger must roar down there. That's why you went there, right? Because the tiger roars. Wrong. I went there because I have to learn how to keep the tiger asleep in his big tigery basket beside me, completely asleep while we go into the planet's most hostile environment, which is an interesting thing to study before coming to talk to you about decision-making under pressure. Now, the tiger did roar, but not under the water. The tiger roared at 2 points. Point 1, when I told all my friends that I was going to become Britain's deepest freediver, and they said, oh, we didn't know you could freedive. And I said, well, I can't yet. And they kind of smiled, bless. Second, when I looked at my schedule, I'm a dad, I've got a house to paint, I've got grass to cut, clothes to wash, carrots to chop. I run a business in my spare time. I don't have any time to take Britain's deepest freedive record. The calendar's full. So the tiger roars when you start saying out loud you're going to take this big, bold decision that we're discussing today. It begins to roar when you talk about it with your colleagues. Really, what's your evidence? How do you know? Oh, some of them good questions, some of them frankly not. But either way, we're going to have to move before we have all the evidence in place, unless we're taking big investment decisions, I guess. So that's your world. But culturally, getting new clients, getting new backers, what all the different elements that make up your work, leading your people, no. It will roar when you cut off other options. We're going to do this. A little bit of that? No, there isn't time. We're going to be great at this. It roars. How loud was Jobs' tiger when he came into Apple and just cut all their lines and put it back to 3? Can you imagine doing that? And second, the tiger roars when you look at your schedule and you work out what you're going to delete, what meeting you are no longer going to, what evening distractions you're no longer indulging in order to do the things you want to do, whether that's build a better relationship with your children rather than all staring at Netflix with headphones, or whether that's creating something else at work. The calendar's going to have to change. And what we work on a lot at home, but is never talked about at school, is that change happens in your calendar. You want to get good at trigonometry, happens in your calendar. Change your body shape, calendar. Longevity, calendar. Why calendar? Because the actions are in the calendar. Decision, action, result. The actions need to be done. Change is always an action. The block to the action is I'm too busy. It's the universal excuse. So what do you need to delete from your calendar? Who are you going to call on Monday to say, I'm never attending your management meeting ever again? I learn nothing, I give nothing, you've got to be joking. I want to go and do something brilliant for our customers. And I'm glad you're laughing at it, but when you do it, the tiger starts to roar. You've got to do it a bit more politely than that. And one of the reasons that it's so hard for us to do that is that we are prediction machines. The neuroscientists are all agreed the primary job of your brain, apart from bodily functions regulation, is to predict the future. And you do that by gathering data from the past. You recognize patterns. You ever had intuition in a meeting about this guy? It's because you've seen the pattern of behavior before, and you predict what's going to happen next. And your emotions twig in, and you react accordingly. Because our pattern prediction of the future, don't go up to that cave, you never come back down. That's the prediction. When you get near that cave, heartbeat's going. The chemistry changes when we change the pattern, when we don't act in contrary to what we expect the pattern to be. So when you say we're not going to that meeting, the pattern changes. Well, the boss won't like that. But they said they wanted bold decisions and big results. Let's run an experiment. See if you're a pattern recognition device, whether you predict the future. We'll run 2 experiments together, and then we'll talk about this in a little bit more detail. So, first experiment. Can you see a red Coke can on the stage? I'm getting some nods. Can you see a red Coke? You got a red Coke. Can you see any red on the screen? Can you see any red? There isn't any. There wasn't any. There's black, white, and green. There was never any red. Let's zoom back out. You're welcome to take a picture and zoom in on this with your kids when you get home if you wish. You saw the red. Pattern recognition. Power of branding. You saw the red. There's no red in the picture. You can zoom in on your pixels. There is none there. It blew my mind. I can only ever see it as red. There is no red there. We predict the future based on the data, cognitive biases. Oh, a black person. Oh, a white person. Oh, a male. Oh, a female. All of the heritage of data we've got starts making us make assumptions when we meet other people, which is why it's so terribly important that we break away from those patterns of the past and meet people as they are, the beautiful things that they are. Let's try another experiment together. Can I ask you please to imagine an 81-year-old man? It's a man for a reason. Stick with a man. And please not a family member. That's too close. But imagine an 81-year-old man. How does he move? How does he dress? What does he spend his days doing? Our 81-year-old man. Well, I'm quite intrigued by aging now. I thought it would be a surprise for you to know I'm in my 50s, but clearly not, given your earlier reaction. So I'm quite intrigued by, what do I have to do today to be different when I'm 80? So I was aware of an 81-year-old CEO and founder, founded his business in the 1960s, only 2 shareholders for many decades, then they admitted 1 more shareholder during the 1980s. It's one of the most successful brands on the planet, and he's still extremely active. Most recognized brands on the planet as well. So I took my 11-year-old daughter, we boarded a plane, we went to California to watch this 81-year-old CEO, and I'd like to show you the film that we took together. Not the guy in red, he's the baby. He's only in his 70s, he's a kid. This guy in green. did that for 2.5 hours. He's got the moves like Jagger, that guy. 2.5 hours. Now, you might say this is not a fair 81-year-old comparison with your imagination that I asked you to think of, because this is Jagger. He's different. He spent a life having so much alcohol, so many drugs, that he has preserved himself somehow. But I don't know. I've seen a few guys now my age who've kept on with the drug and alcohol thing, and they're not looking that good, and they're only in their 50s. How does that sit with your imagination of an 81-year-old man and how he spends his day? We're pattern recognition devices, and if we're not careful, we wake up and we feel a bit stiff and we think, oh, I'm getting old. Jagger thinks I need to do more dance and yoga classes. He does. You can find limited, but you can find that out about him online quite quick. That's not genetics. He works really hard at it. So I thought, imagine if we could find out what the pattern was that he was working to, how he saw the world differently. Imagine if we could hear him, age 20, talking about how he intends to be as an old man. And I found it.
Can you picture yourself at the age 60 doing what you do now?
Yeah, easily, yeah.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Going on stage with a cane and moving the way you do.
The audience is laughing, and he knows how to play an audience, so he's not going to offend them, so he's laughing along. But he's deadly serious, isn't he? Clearly. It's how he modeled his life. Decision, action, result. What's the result? How do I decide? How do I act? What do I put in my calendar to deliver on that? Decision, action, result. Delivered. What's the rule in your rule book you need to change? About who you can trade with, about how fast your people can move, about how fast you can adopt the technologies you need to adopt, about how fast you could test new asset classes. I've gone way outside of my area of expertise now. I just heard that word earlier and I liked it. I wanted to put dots out there, partly because I wanted to play the game, partly because I wanted to put 50, there's a contribution to the schools. They look fabulous, but I felt it was inappropriate of me to skew the data with my ignorance, so I didn't put a dot in. What are the rules you need to challenge about how you think the world works, about how the industry works, about you, where you've come from, the hang-ups you've still got? We've all got them, believe me, from your past, those voices of teachers and parents holding you back. What's the rule you need to change in your rule book to be able to accelerate? We've got to look at these consciously now. It's interesting coaching over the dinner table. So we don't do this all the time, don't worry. My girls are very happy. They're not like constantly coached. But we do all that. Like, why would you say that? Why would you say I can't play in the hockey team? What's making you think that? Rather than thinking we need to buy a hockey stick and put some work in on hockey practice. I'm using hockey as an example. They don't like hockey. But, that's exactly where we're going here. And when we change those rules, because they're designed to keep us safe, we show up for the management meeting and we sit there bored with a coffee, designed to keep us safe, then the tiger will begin to roar. How many of you have voices in your head? I'm in. Anyone else? We've got about 50%. You're a very bold, brave audience, very, very honest. For those whose hands are down, the voice I'm interested in is the one you just had a conversation with in your head. Yeah, I don't think so. But that is weird because I'm talking to someone up here. Who is it? How many of you have given a presentation to a group? Anybody? Come on. When you present to a group, you have a little voice in your head saying, oh yeah, you are hot stuff today. Or a little voice saying, what are you doing here? You should have worked harder. You should have, why didn't you learn your presentation? I always have the latter voice. She's on her phone. He yawned, her. When you leave the comfort zone, the voice begins. When you leave the comfort zone, the voice begins. When you think about ringing your boss to say, that 2-hour meeting on a Monday, seriously, I don't want to do something much better with my time to bring us to hit our objective. The voice kicks off. You can't say that. But that imposter syndrome, that self-doubt, it's just the entry ticket for bold, brave decision-making and change. It's just the entry ticket. It's completely normal. No CEO is without it. No school child is without it. And we're not without it. And let me illustrate this. And we'll look at one way that we can work on this to support ourselves when these moments come. There are many things we could talk about. Many things we could talk about. Southern Hemisphere rugby we could talk about. The All Blacks have a vocabulary. Sorry to go All Blacks rather than Springboks for a moment, but the All Blacks have a vocabulary for this. And they're allowed to call each other out on the pitch. using an emotional, intelligent vocabulary. And you think they're just tough guys who do a lot of weights? They're allowed to notice your emotional state has changed, and they've got words they can use to tell you to come back and use your brain and stop being all aggressive. So if you want to be a jockey, one day you've got to go to the changing room at a racetrack. It's called the weighing room. I was very nervous. I walked up to the weighing room with the lightest kit bag I ever had in my life, and I walked through the door, and I had a voice. As I approached the door, it said, "You've got no right to walk through that door." And I walked in, and inside there are real jockeys. Ryan Moore, Frankie Dettori, and they're looking at me, and I know what they're thinking. The voice in my head tells me what they're thinking. They're all thinking, "He's got no right to walk through this door." And I get changed into silk clothes. Ever tried them? In November, in this country, I'm in silk clothes. It gets worse. You may not know this. I hope you don't. I'm about to ruin it for you. Jockeys don't wear underpants. Now, that's not a me thing, all jockeys. I didn't ask the girls. I had no idea what the girls wear, but the boys, no underpants. Why? Fashion? No. No. Underpants way too much, and if you've got a choice on the jockey's diet between breakfast or a pair of Hugo Boss undies, breakfast. Now, obviously, if you're going to be doing this in public, on a horse, on the television, wearing silk trousers, you need something for a bit of confidence. So all jockeys, not just me, are wearing ladies' tights, hosiery, pantyhose underneath their silk trousers. All of them, meaning that the jockey's weighing room is the most bizarre visual experience you're ever going to have. Lots of very little guys, very skinny, wearing nothing but a pair of tights, reading the racing newspaper, right? It's weird. And I'm in this environment, and a man walks in, he goes, "Jockeys for the next, mount up for the next, jockeys," and he leaves, that's it. And I've got a voice in my head, it says, you got no right to go and mount up for the next. What you want to do, Jim, is go put some clothes on. Put some pants on and get out through the fire escape before they notice you're running. And I'm listening. Whether I have the right to walk out of the door and take part in a horse race isn't dictated by voices in my head, is it? I mean, it feels real, but it isn't dictated by voices in my head, is it? If I think it is, I need a doctor. It's not dictated by how I feel. Great, we're more in tune with our emotions now, truly great, but it's a biochemical reaction to risk. That's all. So how I feel just tells me there's risk. I'm sorry to be unromantic there about emotions. My emotional state has nothing to do with whether I've got the right to walk out of the door and take part in a horse race. That's a position on a flowchart. I've either done everything necessary to walk out of that door and take part, or I have not. And it turns out for the last year, I've been up at 5 o'clock every morning, apart from Sundays. I've been on a horse at 6 o'clock in the dark and the cold and the rain most of the year. I've been at work by 9 o'clock, having been chucked on the floor and shouted at by the racehorse trainer and made a right hash of everything. I got better over time. I have got better over time. I've got to be pretty good now at the end of that year. I've been to the British Racing School at Newmarket for a 2-day assessment, and they passed me after a really rigorous assessment. They've taken references from jockeys who's ridden with me on the gallops of England around the country, and they've all signed off. Yeah, he's good enough. We will race with him. There's quite a process to go through. You can't just show up at the racetrack one day and say, "That does look fun. Can I have a go?" Anyone got any silks in my size? You've got to actually get past with a little certificate, a license. I've been on the jockey's diet. I've lost 25% of my body weight. My family have been incredibly patient with me. I've earned the right to walk out of the door. The only question remaining is, do you have the courage to do it, or do you want to run away? And you can run away. That's absolutely fine. Nobody has to do stuff like this. But I do have to own it. I want the thing done. I know why I'm doing it. I've got my friends beside me outside there. I've worked incredibly hard for 12 months. I've earned the right. It's time to walk through the door, managing that voice and managing those emotions and deliver on the objective. What have you earned the right to go do, ladies and gentlemen? What thing that you think you have no business showing up to do, that people like you aren't supposed to do, have you earned the right, with the support of others, with the help of others, to go and to do next. And when we take those steps, that tiger will roar. Which is why I keep coming back to this. In my opinion, you could say, well, it would be because that's your area that you're fascinated by. But in my opinion, the most important skill for us in a time of rapid change and transformation, increasing competition, demands for higher performance levels, and the highest skill we can teach our young people. And we're protecting them from all pain. They don't grow resilience. The first person to tell them off as a boss sees tears and anxiety come. We're not doing, forgive me, I've gone off track. We need to do a better job with our young people to help them experience pain, to learn. And people ask me, will you run a resilience course for our organization? And the answer is always, no, you can't teach resilience in a classroom. I'm sure we've learned it in this room. And before we do that, we need the support of other people. So recognizing that they will engage with us. The tools are all around us. I've never, ever embarked upon a bold project, whether it's getting a book published globally or whether it's getting a speaking career launched 25 years ago, whether it's working with senior people in organizations. I've never, ever found this to be untrue. People will always help. Our problem is, especially if I may say for the gentlemen, I include myself, is that we're all brought up to be punished if we can't cope, if we can't do it right, if we can't get the right answer. It's what we're supposed to be able to do from age 4 in a classroom for the teacher. And so for all of us, the ability to reach out and ask for help becomes key. I wanted to go and talk to G. Armitage, the jockey who changed my life, Britain's most successful female jump jockey, the first woman to ride a winner at the Cheltenham Festival, one of the first women to ride in the Grand National. I wanted to go and only talk to her when I could ride well. Like, who was I to go in to have dinner with her and ask for help if I couldn't even ride a horse? It's ridiculous. But the system required that I do that. And you know what? Not only was she willing and excited to get involved, but she didn't care at all that I couldn't do it yet. She cared about my enthusiasm to do it. And within 3 days of meeting her, I'm on a racehorse looking ridiculous, and she's looking very stylish up beside me at 30 miles per hour, 30 to 35 miles per hour on the gallops. And she, 3 or 4 days after talking about it, and she's shouting instructions on how to drive the thing over to me. That's what people do. You might think you gave her loads of money. I didn't have loads of money. I had 2 young kids and I'm about to start doing this in the evenings. I didn't have loads of money. People help because people are incredible, but we pull back because we've all been taught and we're not supposed to ask for help. So who do you need on your side? And when you're going to reach out and get them, even if that tiger roars. Now, you saw this film earlier. This time the volume's down. In this film, you can see people who truly believe they are the best jockeys in the world. Have a little look, see if you can spot them. Okay, I'll tell you where they are. Can you see at the top of the picture a building? Grandstand. They're in there. They got a nice big glass of something cold. They just finished a good lunch. They didn't get up at 5 o'clock this morning. They haven't spent all winter on horses when it wasn't sunny and beautiful. It was cold and dark. They haven't been in hospital a couple of times over that winter getting some bones fixed up either. But there they are. And if a jockey doesn't win the race, then he will go and tell that jockey what she did wrong as she comes down at the end of the race and comes back into the weighing room with her saddle under her arm. Because you can get right up close to them at the racetrack and give them feedback. And my word, they do. And you're going to have them too, ladies and gents. There's going to be somebody by the water cooler, by the coffee machine, in a bar somewhere, on social media, wherever it is where they like to talk, explaining why your bold, brave decision ain't going to work and you've got it all wrong and you don't understand. That's why we don't want to take the risk. So let's treat that as a badge of honor when it comes. Let's take it as feedback. Listen to the feedback, rather. Not take it as. Listen to the feedback. Choose carefully what we agree with and what we don't. Discard what we don't and discard the emotion that comes when people judge us and criticize us. Because if you're on the track writing your story, somebody's going to be in a grandstand somewhere criticizing how you're doing it. The only way to avoid that is dress like everyone else, move like everyone else, fit in with everyone else. And I've been asked to speak about bold and brave today, and bold and brave, that isn't. What are the decisions you're going to take? And when you're exposed, how will you handle it? because we'll have to break from the pack to make interesting things happen. And that makes the tiger roar. Now, I'm going to talk about two principles, and we may have time for a bit of Q&A. I'll check in with my team here, the team here. They're not mine, sadly. They're fabulous. I wish they were mine, but they're not. But whether we're good for time. But the penultimate idea I'd like to bring in, I'll tell you a story. I found an amazing tutor to help me freedive. I found him online, and I did the same thing. Didn't study it on YouTube. I went straight to someone who I thought could help me, and just was very polite and asked him whether he'd consider taking me on as an idiotic young apprentice, and he took me on. A wonderful Italian man named Andrea Zuccari, who went on to become the second deepest man in history over time after I met him. 185 meters was his deepest dive. And he holds the Italian record. He's second in the world. I rang him up one morning because I'd been thinking to myself, I know I have to hold my breath, but I don't know how long I have to hold it for. So I rang Andrea. I said, Andrea, for how long do I have to hold my breath? And in his beautiful Italian accent, he said, Gima, I need you to have a 5-minute breath holder. I thought, ooh. Relax. Maybe, I thought, maybe you have a hidden, undiscovered talent for holding your breath. So I went up to my bedroom with my phone, and I lay on the bed. And I started the stopwatch, and I breathed. And when I thought I was going to die, I looked at the clock, and I saw that I do not have a hidden talent for holding my breath. My stopwatch says 40 seconds, and I'm going to get 5 minutes. So I rang the man back. I said, we've got a problem. I'm the wrong man. I can't do this. I can only do 40 seconds. And he's laughing at me. He said, what? I said, why are you laughing? He said, well, of course you can only do 40 seconds. We're just starting out. That's average, normal. Do you own a yoga mat? I said, of course I don't own a yoga mat. He said, well, you're going to buy a yoga mat. You're going to get on it every morning at 5 a.m. and you're going to do precisely what I tell you to do. And if you do that, I promise you that in 8 months, you will have a 5-minute breath hold. But he was wrong. Because in 5 months, I had a 5-minute breath hold. And there's nothing special about me. There is nothing special about me. I don't usually admit this, but I'll admit it because you've been a lovely Friday afternoon, warm, laughy, gorgeous audience. But they told me I was the only freediver they ever had who came up after a national record, 100-meter freedive, and whose first line was, who's got my Marlboros? Right? I've dealt with it. It's in the past. I've moved on. I'm good now. There is nothing special about me. You could do it too if you wanted it. But here's the thing. What was tricky? Because it was tricky. Getting up at 5 o'clock? No. I'm pretty disciplined. You are too. Getting on the yoga mat, doing what he told me to do, the exercises? No. Very, very simple. Just, step by step. But when you get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and the house is empty, and you've got a client proposal to polish off by lunchtime, and you've got the kids' breakfast to make at some stage, and you've got the laundry to get put on or the dishwasher to empty, the last thing you believe you have the right to do is get on a yoga mat for a speculative free dive that everyone tells you you're never going to pull off. And that's where the brave and the bold decision falls down. Because we've got urgent things to do today, and you're going to do something important in the future, speculatively, to try and bring something special around. And everything in your body, everything in your spouse's body and mind and words and your colleagues says, crack on with the tasks, do not be sitting around on your yoga mat. But the one thing that changed my career more than the horse race, and the horse race had an impact, was being Britain's deepest freediver. We design our futures, and we do it through our decisions and our actions. What are the building blocks of your future that you want to put in place? And then hold sacred with a barrier of steel, of titanium around them to ensure that others cannot take it away from you. Because showing up on that yoga mat had more impact on my life than graduating with a law degree, I promise you. What are the basics you need to put in place? And when you take those decisions each and every day to show up for your basics that you hope, you don't know, you hope will build the future, that tiger's going to roar. Say, get on your computer, get on that PowerPoint and polish it off like everybody else. Right, I write about this topic every single Sunday without fail. It's one of my disciplines. If you would like that to land in your newsletter, to keep this energy, to keep these ideas fresh, this week we're talking about not only the emotion, choosing our own emotions in change, but also how the leader of the team, the organization, the family, sets the emotional state for the entire organization. Something we work quietly with leaders behind closed doors on before they come out and communicate. How they set the emotional tone, how they frame the change and the challenge. That's where we're going this week. And then sometimes I'll write about how we support others to do it. And then maybe once every 6 months, how do we present? Because people always ask me to write about presenting too. Be wonderful to have you with us if you would like. Is it working? You're getting blocked. Oh no. Talk to me later. It's not us, I don't think. Hopefully we don't have a blocking thing. I don't think we do. We'll work it out if it is. So let me bring it to a close. Many of us will have been told to leave the comfort zone. Very few of us will have been given a name for the place outside. We just got to leave the comfort zone. What's the place outside called? I've always got some fancy things I see on Instagram, like the growth zone, which is very sexy. But I'm not sure it really describes the emotions that we're going to meet when we get there. I call the place outside the comfort zone the ugly zone. It's honest. We don't feel cool out there. We feel ugly. Yesterday we knew how it all worked. Today we're doing speculative stuff and we don't know if it'll work or not, but we're going to go for it. So it's different. It's bold. It's brave. It's ugly. So to cross there, when everything in your body, all your colleagues, your partner, your kids, potentially, your kids are usually your best allies, want you to come back to yesterday, that takes commitment. You're going to have to decide, I'm going there. I'm going there. I'm on the yoga mat. I'm not doing the dishwasher. So I want to close by asking you what you want to commit to. Whether there's something you thought you had no business showing up to that you would like to commit to doing as we leave London. When you leave London. And to do that, I'd like you just to come free. I'm going to invite you to come free diving with me. We'll talk about commitment to a 100-meter dive. But to do that, if you wish, you don't have to. If you wish, just relax your tummies a bit. Take some nice deep breaths where your diaphragm, the muscle that cuts you in half here, that muscle goes down into your tummies, pushes it all out so you don't look cool, you look ugly. Take some nice, big, relaxing breaths and get ready to dive, if you wish. So there's a moment in a free dive where you have to take a decision. It's like a point on a pilot's checklist. And you can see me taking it now. Take a deep breath with me as I raise my head, and let's go. And that decision is, I'm now going to 100 meters. Now that doesn't mean, even if it goes wrong, I'm going to do it. It's not a macho decision. I love my children. I love my life. I love my work. There is no way I'm going to injure myself for the sake of an ego moment. So there's a problem. I've got an elite team on the surface. I've become extremely good myself. If there's a problem, I'm coming home very quickly as we have practiced. If there is not a problem, I'm going to 100 meters. I cannot possibly achieve my objective if I start this dive without that commitment. If I start this dive thinking, I'm going to go to 80 meters, and when I get there, I'll stop, have a little think, see whether today is the day for me. At 80 meters, I'm under 9 times the Earth's atmospheric pressure. This means my lungs have compressed down to the size of my clenched fist up here. Currently, they occupy, of course they do, my entire rib cage, each side just as yours do. Don't worry, that's not dangerous. We are built like dolphins. Isn't that amazing? They didn't know this. In the 1980s, Jacques Mayol from France was the first man to go to 100 meters under the ocean. He had doctors on scuba every 10 meters because they believed that he would be crushed like a steel can at some stage during the dive. That's pioneering. I have to take the decision. I cannot decide at 80 meters. At 80 meters, my lungs have collapsed down. My diaphragm, the muscle separating my stomach from my chest cavity, has been sucked up like the dome of St. Paul's Cathedral around the corner, up into my chest. That means that my belly's been pulled in by the vacuum, meaning that at 80, 90 meters under the ocean, you look gorgeous. If you could stay like this, you'd all be free diving with me at the weekend. I can't possibly come back with the prize without committing to going all the way to 100. As I've trained, as my friends have supported me to, as I said I was going to, it's time to show up and commit and deliver. And I think it is the same for all of us. We all have a gravitational pull back to yesterday, to how it was. But bold and brave is a decision to move to tomorrow, to create speculatively something that we don't know the pattern of. We're going to create the pattern. We're going to build. The work you do is important to many people's lives. So what is the brave and bold decision you take as a result of this special week together in London? What's the bold and brave decision you take as a result of this special afternoon with our hosts, M&G? What is the chapter that you write next? It's been a great pleasure spending time with you, especially on a Friday afternoon. You've done so well. Thank you very much indeed. I wish you every possible success in the journey ahead. Thank you. Bye.